On a sun-drenched afternoon, when golden light bathed the city streets, a little bakery on Riverside Avenue hummed with the aroma of freshly baked bread, sugary treats, and the quiet promise of new memories. Yet hidden beneath all that comfort, a silent tide of despair was waiting just beyond its entrance. A frail, worn-out woman named Marissa walked through the door, her clothing stained with dirt and her face etched deep with anxiety. Her young daughter Flora walked beside her, eyes heavy with exhaustion, yet still holding the faintest spark of hope. Marissa's shoulders quivered as she steeled herself to speak, for neither of them had eaten since the previous day, and the last thing Flora had been given was half of a single apple, reluctantly split between them. She hadn't come to make a purchase. She had come only to ask for what others discarded without a moment's thought. If you believe kindness still has a place in this world, if you believe a second chance can truly rescue someone, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us carry stories that bring healing to those who need it. Inside the bakery, everything struck Marissa as almost painfully abundant. Neat rows of fresh loaves lined the shelves, pastries gleamed like precious stones, and elaborately decorated cakes looked fit for a celebration she could never imagine attending. She kept her eyes down, afraid that the gazes around her would strip away what little dignity she had left. Flora pressed herself against her mother's side, her tiny fingers gripping the fabric of her sleeve. With tentative steps, Marissa moved toward the counter, feeling almost unworthy of the polished floors beneath her worn shoes. The staff glanced up, their practiced smiles wavering as they tried to read the situation. Marissa's voice cracked as she asked whether they had any out-of-date cake, something that would have been discarded at the end of the day, anything at all she could offer her daughter, who hadn't enjoyed a sweet treat in months. What she didn't realize, however, was that someone else was there, watching quietly. A tall man in a neat gray suit, Roland Vance, one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the city, had slipped into the bakery unannounced, trading his usual corporate surroundings for a rare moment of stillness. He had come for a slice of blueberry pie, seeking a brief escape from the demands of his world. Instead, life had placed something far more meaningful in front of him. The moment Marissa's words reached him, Roland felt something stir deep within. Many assumed that wealth made a person heartless, but for Roland, it was grief, not success, that had sealed him off. Years ago, he had lost both his wife and his daughter in a devastating accident, and since then he had kept his heart barricaded behind walls that no amount of money could tear down. Yet here, in the warm quiet of an ordinary afternoon, a mother's shaking voice found a crack in those walls. Marissa stood motionless as the employees exchanged uneasy looks. They genuinely wanted to help, but their manager's policy strictly forbade giving food away before closing time. Her face flushed with humiliation as the silence grew unbearable. She considered turning around, retreating before the embarrassment consumed her entirely. But hunger has a way of anchoring a person to whatever hope remains, even when that hope feels like an open wound. Flora tugged softly at her sleeve, her gaze drifting briefly toward a strawberry-topped cake resting behind the glass display. She didn't ask for it. She wouldn't allow herself to. Children in her position learned early on which desires were acceptable and which were better left unspoken. Roland took in every detail. The way the little girl stayed hidden in her mother's shadow. The way Marissa fought to hold her head up despite the invisible weight pressing her down. In Flora's small, quiet hands and restrained longing, he heard distant echoes of his own daughter. Something inside him fractured, not with pity and not out of obligation, but out of recognition. He recognized the face of suffering he had once known himself. In that moment, he didn't see a destitute woman or a starving child. He saw two souls nudged into the margins by life's harshness, standing at the threshold of a warm place they weren't sure they were allowed to enter. What followed carried the quiet grace of morning light sliding through a curtain. Roland moved toward the counter without drawing attention to himself. No grand announcements, no display of his wealth, no performance for onlookers. He calmly asked the staff to package the finest cake on display. A generous vanilla sponge layered with cream, topped with fresh berries, and dressed with a full array of colorful fruit. He then requested 2 hearty servings of food, pastries, sandwiches, and whatever else he felt might breathe some life back into those hollow, hungry eyes. Marissa watched in bewilderment as the stranger placed the order, bracing herself for a lecture or a look of contempt once he turned around. Instead, Roland quietly set the bag on the counter and nodded to the cashier to pass it to her. He thanked the staff warmly and wished them a pleasant afternoon, as though what he had just done was simply part of the ordinary rhythm of the day. He didn't linger for praise. He didn't wait to be thanked. He simply stepped back and gave Marissa the space to receive that kindness without feeling indebted or observed. But when her trembling hands reached out for the bag, the weight of it broke through every wall she had built to hold herself together. She wept in the way a person does when they've been carrying too much for far too long. Flora's face transformed, not with greed or excitement, but with pure, quiet relief, an expression Roland hadn't seen in years and had deeply missed. The employees who had hesitated moments before now felt the sting of their own reluctance. Kindness had walked into that bakery in the form of a quietly dressed man, and its presence was felt by everyone in the room. Roland turned toward the exit, fully intending to leave without ceremony, but Marissa called out to him, not loudly, not with drama, just a soft, broken whisper of gratitude, carrying more genuine feeling than any applause or formal acknowledgement he had ever received in his professional life. He paused and looked back, and in that moment, a smile crossed his face, one of genuine warmth, one that touched the memory of what he had loved and lost rather than tearing it open. He told her simply to take care of herself. No names exchanged, no advice offered, no strings attached, just one human being acknowledging another. As Roland stepped back into the afternoon sun, the world seemed to carry a different quality, the light a little gentler, the breeze a little kinder. He understood now that there was still space in the world for restoration, and that in choosing to help, he had unknowingly revived something within himself he believed had died long ago. Nearby, Marissa and Flora had settled onto a small bench outside the bakery, sharing cake with the unguarded joy of people who hadn't felt truly seen in far too long. Their smiles, though weary and soft, looked like the first light of a brighter morning. And Roland understood, truly understood, that it is rarely the sweeping gestures or the enormous donations that alter the course of a life. More often, it is a single moment of genuine compassion offered at precisely the right time. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and share this video, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so we can keep bringing you stories like this one. Before you go, we'd love to hear from you. Do you believe that small acts of kindness have the power to change someone's entire life? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And with that, we close this story, set on one warm afternoon, where a humble request for a leftover cake quietly opened the door to hope, healing, and a reminder that humanity, even now, still has the capacity to shine, most brilliantly in the places where we least expect it.